Welcome to GDP's Graphics 1 2019. My name is Felipe Bellini and this is a video demonstration of Project 2, addressing the classes lectured by Michael Finney at Fanshawe College. All the information and source regarding this project can be found both at Fanshawe Online and GitHub. Project 2 features textures, transparency, and shader functions. Okay, so let's go ahead and open Bell Engine Solution on Visual Studio 2019. This is our scene. It's supposed to simulate a museum of sorts. We can look around using the mouse or the arrow keys on the keyboard. We can also move forward, backwards, left and right using the WASD keys. Yep. So let's dive into the features present in Project 2. The first thing we can see here is the particle systems. The particle system is trying to simulate water sprouting from the top of the fountain. We can see the spheres here. Okay. We have lights, a bunch of lights in the environment also. We have moonlight. We have lights in the eyes of each dinosaur, and the lights for the crystals or torches. We have transparency, two kinds of transparency. This one that simulates glass, which is using the alpha, and another one that simulates the, actually it doesn't draw at all, it's the discard function in the shader. If we get close to the windows here, we can see the moon outside, so that's using discard as well. Let's move around. Another shader feature here is the refract that's in the sword. The swords here, which is interesting. We have a combination of textures. In this case, I'm merging textures by a ratio of 50% each texture. You can see that this pattern here is one texture, and below there's also the original texture of the animal, which is supposed to be the leather or the skin of the dinosaur or something like that. We can also see a different pattern here on the mammoth. This one has fur, so the fur is combining with the pattern here. And the third dinosaur has a similar pattern as the first dinosaur. This one looks kinda nice. It has the same idea, has a pattern, and there's the letter. Beyond, we can see that there's some spots here. This is from the original shader of the dinosaur. We can see the nostrils, right? All the objects in the scene have textures of some kind. For instance, the walls and the ground, the floor, are planes, plane meshes with a single texture applied to them. The door is a texture, for instance. On top of that, we also have the skybox around our environment. The skybox is composed of 6 textures and a sphere. It's a sphere mesh. Let's go outside of the map to see our skybox. Here we have it. It's a large sphere. The textures are being applied to the internals of the sphere. This is all being rendered in the shader, by the shader, right? Another shader functionality is the crosshair in the middle of the screen. It's using a method called do not light, which Michael showed to us in the beginning of the program. That's useful for debugging objects also. Another feature that's present in this project is the debug functionality. So by pressing F4, we can see bounding boxes of sorts. So we have a cube or a rectangle or a plane around a certain object, and objects that have this axis looking thing, they are contained inside a sphere that's representing a sphere. All these boxes here have rotation, scaling, and so on being applied to them. So that looks kind of cool. And it's using the debug renderer that Michael showed to us during class for drawing the lines and so on. Okay, with that, I think we can move on to the shader. So we can see the functions that are being used there. So let's go there. Okay, so our fragment shader here has a bunch of functions. So the way I opted to do this project was to have everything in a single file, as opposed to having multiple different shaders. So I've added a couple of functions here. There's the do not light. There's a single texture shader function. There's a dual texture shader function. This will blend textures by 50%. So each of them will have the same percentage of over the mesh and should blend together. There's transparency using discard. There's transparency using the alpha. That's the glass effect, the dome around one of the dinosaurs. The discard can be seen in the windows that we just saw, or the grid of the cage around the third dinosaur. There's also a skybox shader and a function for refract for the sword that's using here. When the shader loads up, I have diffuse color mode variable that's being checked, and then according to whatever value is inside this variable, the fragment shader will decide which function to call internally. The functions are at the end of the file, if you'd like to see those. Here, scar.